Greetings, everybody. I hope you can hear me all right. Moving my microphone around in order to see if I can get the best sound quality. So, today I'm going to be discussing rule number 2 and 3 from Alinsky's. I think there's 12 rules for radicals on here. Not quite to the end of the book, but I'm getting close. I'm probably 2/3 done. So this video, the title will be using expertise as a border. And so rules 2 and 3 for Alinsky deal with making sure you never go outside the expertise of your people while always going out or always trying to go out of the expertise of those who you are engaged with. This is a fantastic tactic. This is the best way to flank an opponent in any kind of political struggle. This is used. The left uses this all of the time. The right really lacks the ability to use this tactic. Ideologically, they do, but the left can do this so easy, and that's why a lot of the times that they steamroll conservatives. And so I'll explain that in a moment. So rule 2 is make sure to stay within the bounds of your own expertise. And the reason is when you get caught off of your or out of your depth or out of your expertise in an organization, it can lead to confusion, it can lead to fear, it can lead to disaster, disorganization, not sure what's happening, not sure what's going on. And so it's very important that if you're leading an organization that the people know that you're going to keep them within the bounds of their expertise. This means you might need to bring in experts. So if you're going to specifically attack an organization or a political opponent or something like that, you need to bring in experts to guide you on the best way to do things. It's a way of being able to borrow authority, borrow experience. You see this all the time. The left wing in the United States, because they are, we would consider them amoral. Morality is what they call morality is actually ethics. Ethics are decided by the group. Morality is decided by God, right? So what they call morality is actually ethics. So they get together and they decide that the ends justify the means. Therefore, they can go and do whatever they have to encompass a large, diverse swath of experts, of things, of experiences. And so that's why when you have discussions, so it's like a peer review paper, right? So I'm a doctor. I've got friends who are doctors. I can write a garbage paper and send it to them to peer review it. And if they think like I do and don't really care, they can say, yep, that's fantastic. And I can take that and, oh, it's been peer reviewed, right? Now, it hasn't been peer reviewed very well, but that happens on a much larger scale. Most of like the medical journals and things are controlled by the left. Most of the nutrition journals and stuff like that are controlled by the left. And so what happens is they end up writing papers and bouncing the same narrative without anybody actually critically examining the paper. They do this to make news. They did this with hydroxychloroquine in early June because it was showing promise that it could help with COVID-19, not actually fix it, but it might help. And so what they did was, because Trump was touting it as it might be effective, they rushed out some papers that were so poorly put together saying it was dangerous, right? But these papers were junk. They were absolute junk. But what it did was it caused everybody to pull back from saying, hey, we may have found a therapeutic that works. Well, they had to retract those a few weeks later very quietly because the papers were junk. And that's what happened. So they retracted the junk papers. Nobody's really heard about it, but they got their political message across. They were effective. They attacked. They stayed within their narrow band of expertise. And so they had the experts to rely on to pull their narrative through. On the flip side, rule number 3 is, when possible, always go outside the expertise of your enemy. Until conservative doctors started to stand up and say, hey, we need to make sure that we study this because it might actually work, the conservatives were just sitting around like, well, whoops, I guess we should just, sit and wait. Confused, absolutely bamboozled, had no idea what was up, what was down. Very nervous, very fearful. Oh no, we made the wrong. Fear is the number one thing conservatives had. They're just chickens, right? And so they were scared to death. And so the tactic here was fantastic because the left was able to go outside the experience and sow confusion and fear and cause conservatives to retreat again. Very, very effective. We see this all the time. HQ was just the first thing that popped in my mind. This happens all the time. It's one of those reasons why the left is pushing now your lived experience, which is actually postmodernism. It's an attack on reason and logic and empirical evidence. Because if they can push the fact that your lived experience is more valuable than empirical evidence, then you can always go outside the experience of your enemy because they are not you. And you can just claim X and nobody can deny it. And so that's one of the reasons why we have to push back on postmodernism too, besides the fact that postmodernism is stupid. It's just stupid, right? It's stupid. Look into it. It's the word moron basically just means intellectually disadvantaged would be like a good word. People who believe in postmodernism are intellectually disadvantaged or disabled a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Postmodernism is a horrible thing. It just destroys logic and reason and believes that you can build a society or a world out of that. It's horrible. So built within the third rule of using expertise as a border, if you can keep going outside your enemy, going outside their expertise, flanking them, you're going to be able to knock them off balance. So if we go back to the HQ thing, the HQ narrative story, what happened in June, July, you end up seeing that the conservatives were so off balance, it's like they were picking their nose and then just got broadsided. And this is one reason they don't like Trump, because Trump invites trouble, right? He's like, bring it on, I'll fight you. And conservatives are like, no, we don't want to fight. No. Conservatives are chicken, right? So they don't want to fight. And Trump causes fights, and conservatives are usually the ones losing fights. They're like the scrawny kid who always got beat up. And so they don't want any more John Kasich, for example, right? Prime example of a conservative who doesn't want to fight because he just gets beat up and just wants to go wherever people will say he's welcome, right? If you like John Kasich, it's not anything against his like political nature. It's just what I've noticed over the past like decade or so. Like all of a sudden Lindsey Graham got a backbone, that kind of thing. They called it Lindsey Graham 2.0, where they're like, what happened to him? Because Lindsey Graham was always very passive. And so, but whenever you get your enemy off balance because you went out of their expertise, you either grabbed an expert, you are an expert, you shifted to the side. Once they're off balance, that is when you start hitting them with everything you have. You attack, never-ending attack. It's usually a good idea for you to not necessarily attack right up front. Alinsky talks about this. What you really should do is you should go outside their expertise first and hit them, and when they come off balance, that's when you unleash everything. You hit them on every front, and we can see this every single time. It's one of the reasons why Black Americans who are conservative are so valuable to the conservative movement now because of everything going on in the world today, and the narrative that your lived experience is more important than empirical data. And so that's why you see people like Candace Owens, Tatum, Carson, Herman Cain. He passed away today. I was so sad. I liked Herman Cain. He's my second choice for president in 2012. Not my first, but my second. And my first was not even close to making it. But anyway, so that's why they're so important, is because when the left frames things, and they frame it well, and at some point I will talk about framing, because you can frame a question or a situation in such a way that it is impossible for someone to answer the question in a positive light. The new press secretary, she is fantastic at recognizing this and switching the narrative up, and that's why the press hates her. But these are Alinsky tactics. They are fantastic. Christians can't use them all. I hate that. We can't, because these tactics are immoral. A lot of them are, but they are so useful. They are so powerful. But again, as a Christian leader, I don't recommend using these. I recommend learning how to counter these and making sure that when you recognize what's going on, when you see it, know how to deal with it. Don't necessarily use it. You can use the flanking. You can use going outside the expertise of your opponent. If postmodernism really takes root, it might not matter, because even if you're an expert in the field, and I have been accused of this, it doesn't matter that you're an expert, because my lived experience is different than that. And so you're wrong because I feel that you're wrong. That is, you just can't debate someone like that. You cannot find a middle ground, and you cannot reason with them, because in postmodernism, reason is evil. Logic is evil. Data is evil. Facts are not real. Feelings are real. So learn some of this stuff. You need to know. I know a lot of this is somewhat technical. I'm trying to use some current events to help show you what's going on based on this book. But don't take my word for this. Study this. And once you can recognize what's going on, the scales fall off and you realize, oh my goodness, things are so much different than I thought they were with regards to what's going on in the United States today. It really will open your eyes to see what is happening in our modern world.